So I'm trying to say that the relationship between language or words and experience or ongoing living, that relationship is already there. Language is already part of human living. It's already geared into every moment of living. And even if you have an experience that has never been spoken before and has no words to go with it and didn't have words while you were living it, it has an implicit capacity to generate sentences that will say it because of what words are. They are part of our living, and they are part of the connections in living. And so an inherent connection, or even more than connection, is an inherent identity between bodily living and thinking and speaking. Thinking and speaking are special kinds of living, special kinds of physical ongoing living, and they have their own continuity. It isn't as if language were somewhere else and you're bringing it. And if you ask yourself how to describe something is even possible, how to say something that is based on what you are experiencing, how it's even possible for language to do that. Language consists of sounds, and it generates certain pictures, and it could never really photograph what you are living. It's rather that it's already part of what you're living. When we speak, we change the situation that we're in a certain way, and the words come to us to say. And it would be strange if they didn't. But when you think about it and watch how they come, it's strange how they come. You just let them come. You just open your mouth and hope. And usually the right thing comes out, and if not, you can tell it didn't. You say, wait, that's not what I mean. So the whole TAE procedure, which is fairly simple, is also, philosophically speaking, a smashing attack, you might say, on the current philosophy of language and of people, according to which the language makes us, and we can't get past the cultural heritage, and we are products of culture and language and history, as if language and history and culture existed without us and developed somewhere else and were somehow or other imposed on us. Of course, that philosophy is a reaction against an earlier philosophy and so forth, so I'm not saying it's entirely wrong. But it's time for us to go on now and notice that each individual is an endless intricacy, really. And each individual experiences an enormous amount of articulated sense that life makes, and problems that it makes, and questions that it generates. And every individual is an immense fund of what culture and the public language never heard of. And if you do the TAE procedure, you will be saying things that have never been said in the history of the world. One thing about TAE is, while it's in the middle period, while we're going through it, there's always a sort of struggle and pain and difficulty. But at the end, people are very excited. They've discovered that they can think. And now that I have done this with people a lot, I really, at first I was surprised, but now I'm not. I see that, of course, we all learned that thinking is that other thing. We learned that thinking means you put yourself away and you learn certain checker pieces and then you rearrange them and give them back. That thinking is something separate from the person. And that is so prevailing. You know, not long ago I had a fairly good discussion with another philosopher, and then I asked him about how that applied to him personally. Not even personally, it was very abstract, but how he personally had his own sense of this. And he said, oh, well, that would take me a long time to... it wasn't there for him. It was like it was in a different building and he would have to drive over there and get it. So with that being thinking, most people come away from their school years feeling that they can't think. It's not their thing and they can't really do it. And they just accept that. They get tremendously excited when they discover that of course they can think. It's this. It's making terms directly from what you already livingly know. It's making sentences in which the words can mean what they've never meant before, but what they mean for you. And you can go back in there and say, what is that word doing in my sentence? And it opens up and you have more. And this is a subtler, much more precise kind of thinking than we learn even in philosophy. And yet it's a procedure that you can teach and you can empower people to think. So I am very, very strident on this matter, that don't tell people that they can't think anything that isn't already in the library, just the opposite. What's already in the library, we don't need them to think. What you haven't yet said, that's where there is value. And the more private it seems, the further away from the public language it is, the more it's going to be important to all of us when you can articulate it. I know it's not possible to say what philosophy is, because philosophy is standing at a place where you are undercutting, questioning, wondering about the different ways of saying things or the different ways of thinking, and even to say that much is already a position rather than philosophy. You say, I've already asserted that there are different ways of thinking and that you want to know them. I've already asserted a whole lot of things. So if I could not stand anywhere like that, then I could tell you what philosophy is. Philosophy is this very exciting question of how there can be such things as exciting questions, or how there can be questions, or how there can be how, or what asking is, or what thinking is, or what is. And that's one thing. Then it seems to me, at least, that any further should really be based on what we are living through, what we're experiencing, what we actually are. But that's a very quick jump, because before you get to that place, there are all these different wonderful strategies for thinking, all these different kinds of concepts. And so if you see what I mean, I want to say philosophy isn't really about anything. It's about. And then about isn't a very good word, because about seems to mean that we're sitting here saying one thing and what we're talking about is somewhere else. And that's only one kind of philosophical approach. So in between this first sense that I'm trying to convey, that you're thinking about how thinking could be anyhow and how you could be, from there are a lot of very precise, very well worked out, historically famous systems and strategies and kinds of concepts which one learns, and any one of those is enriching and interesting and helpful. And that you can't really replace. But at the end of all of that, to not be trapped in one of these, but to be able to use all of them or any of them, and to see what you can get from all of them or any of them, you need to stand again in your own experience, in your own felt ongoingness, which is this intricate complexity inside of life. And if you stand there, then you can use any and all of these strategies. And it turns out, and this is really shocking to me, it turns out that even if you don't know any of them, you can still do something from there. You can still formulate what you know that hasn't been said and can't be said in the public language. You can still formulate that, even though you don't have all this machinery and training and facility to be able to think about how come you can say it, how language actually works, what it is, all those things which I think are immensely valuable and I've spent my life on. You actually don't have to have them for this one practice, this one purpose, this one capacity to put into the world what hasn't been said yet that you're carrying from your particular experience.